on the Hardrocker Sports Network from K-Tech 91.3. This is Hardrocker Huddle, your podcast home for South Dakota Mines athletics.
Welcome into the second episode of the Hardrocker Huddle. I'm your host, Josh van Valkenburg-Gernert, here with South Dakota Mines head volleyball coach, Lauren Torvi Prochazka. Just starting off, kind of talk a little bit about what your life was like growing up. Did you have any siblings? Was it pretty competitive with them?
Yeah, fun question. So first of all, thanks for having me. I grew up in Rhode Island. I grew up with one sister and our parents. My sister's name is Anna. She is 4.5 years older than me. She was always very athletic and kind of drove our sport-mindedness. Extremely competitive. She is a very dominant individual, which is pretty interesting because a lot of people feel like I'm very intimidating, and then when they meet me and my sister's dynamic and she kind of controls our situation, it makes everyone kind of laugh. But we grew up together. We never were in school together because of our grade difference, but she got me into basketball, she got me into volleyball. She was always really good at all the sports. She was the best at soccer. And she actually just moved to Rapid City, so I am thrilled to have her back in my life.
So just kind of going off that, what was it like growing up in Rhode Island, obviously, and then what was your first move from Rhode Island when you got your first coaching job?
Yeah, so growing up in Rhode Island was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people, when I tell them that I grew up in Rhode Island, they imagine that I grew up in like $1 million beach house somewhere, and it's very much the opposite. I grew up in northern Rhode Island, so it was like very wooded, really kind of backwoods kind of people, like in the sense of we did a lot of outdoor stuff, a lot of hiking, a lot of water sports. We just kind of like to be outside. But I pretty much miss the ocean as much as possible. It was a wonderful, beautiful place to grow up. I had a really big family there, really small, tight-knit family that was very much Italian, so very much connected, and we were very loud and boisterous and a lot of fun. But I went to college in Springfield College in Massachusetts, which is about an hour and a half from my house, because I lived pretty much on the border of Massachusetts. And that was essentially my first move out. I didn't go home much, which most kids don't go home when they go to college, no matter how far they are from home. But my first move when I flew the coop, I guess, was I moved to Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, out of college. I was a sport management major at Springfield, and one of the requirements to get your degree essentially was to do an internship. And very similar to like what kids at Mines do as far as like co-ops, internships, but a lot of students did a lot of stuff local. There's a lot of sports, obviously, in New England. You know, people work at the Red Sox, Patriots, minor league sports, but I kind of wanted to get out. Like, I had finished my volleyball season in the fall, so I had all of spring semester, and I was like, I want to experience life. So I got this internship in the athletic department at Ohio State University, working with events. So we did all event management. So I was pretty much just turned 21. My dad drove me out to Columbus. I had never lived anywhere else. I found this apartment on Craigslist with a bunch of Ohio State students. I moved in and started my internship, and I lived there for, I guess, 7 months while I finished my degree, and then kind of decided what I was going to do next in my life.
Sure. Kind of jumping back a little bit, what kind of drew you into, wanting to play volleyball, wanting to play basketball?
Yeah. So sports were always a big part of our life, When you grow up in a small town or in a small environment like that, it's kind of just what you do. I played basketball for, close to 12, 13 years of my life. I played AAU since I was like in 4th grade. I was decent at basketball. I wouldn't say I was very good, but I was decent. I was first team All-State 2 years in a row, but it's Rhode Island, so not a lot of competition. But no, I played basketball for a really, really, really long time. And it wasn't until I got to high school that I was like, volleyball looks cool, because my sister had played it. And it was just when I entered high school, my freshman year, was just when they changed rally scoring. So when I was in junior high watching my sister play volleyball, it was like you only got points when you served. So this was like just on the brink of volleyball changing, and it became a lot more fast-paced sport. It was really fun for me. So I started it in 9th grade, and I played all the way through. And I was like, okay, this is way more fun than basketball. I can't hurt anyone when I get too angry, which basketball is always kind of tricks you into those things. But I just loved the speed of the game. I loved being at the net, like kind of really using my height to an advantage when it came to the game. So I fell in love with it fast. And essentially, when I get to the point of like junior, senior of high school, when you kind of have to decide what you're going to do, I was so burnt out of basketball. I'd played it my whole life. I was like, I'm over it. And the kind of the nail in the coffin for me was I was playing club volleyball. I played 1 year of club volleyball before I went to college for a really small club, and I had to go to practice on a Saturday morning, I think it was. And my basketball coach at high school was like, "No, you have to come to basketball practice." And I just was like, "I'm good." And at that point, I just walked away from it, and which was kind of a bummer. I think I was like 6 points away from my 1,000 points or something ridiculous. I just was so burnt out. I fell in love with volleyball, and there was no looking back. So that's kind of fell in love with sports, and that's why I went to Springfield, not only to play volleyball, but to major in sport management. Because I was like, my life is going to revolve around sports. I just love every facet of it.
Sure, and then kind of what, I guess you mentioned being a little bit close to home, but what else kind of drew you to Springfield College? Did you have other options, other offers, any good recruiting stories?
Yeah, zero good recruiting stories because I was recruited by 0 people. I can't say that. I was recruited by one coach, and I still see him around to this day, but he was at Stonehill College, and there's one school that ever recruited me. I played club for 1 year. I mean, so you're not going to get recruited unless you're playing club, and you're really out there at a national level. And I didn't even play on the club team. Like, I was the 3rd string, and I would, like, go in every now and then. But, no, I was recruited by 0 people. I knew I wanted sport management, so me and my mom, we really started, like, researching schools around the area. My dad had got his master's at Springfield, so, like, we kind of knew about it. But I just kind of contacted them. They came to watch me play, I think, one time, and then I went on a visit. And Joel Deering was my coach that recruited me at that time, and his assistant, Kate Kozak. She went to Navy, and then she had since retired from coaching, but they just were fantastic people when I went on my visit, and I did an overnight visit with one of my very good friends. Her name is Aileen Ilkson. She was a senior when I was a freshman, but she is now the head volleyball coach at George Mason. But she was my overnight host. Her and my other teammate, Jess Baldwin, and I had time of my life. Probably a little too much fun. We got to hang out with the men's volleyball team all night because they had men's volleyball at Springfield, so it was just like volleyball life, and it was so much fun. We did all this fun stuff. I really got exposed to what Springfield was all about, which was just people, just great people. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I walked away from that visit, and I told my mom, I was like, yeah, that's pretty much where it's going to happen. I had done some other visits at schools, but it wasn't a great fit. In Springfield, they were my people, so it was an easy choice for me.
Sure, and then you had quite the good playing career while you were there. 2-time All-Conference, made an Elite Eight, named an AVCA All-American, New England Women's and Men's Athletic Conference Player of the Year, Women's Volleyball Player of the Year, and this one's a mouthful, Eastern College Athletic Conference Division III New England Volleyball All-Stars Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, they like their stuff in New England, I guess. Yeah, so like I said, I barely played volleyball for 4 years before I got to Springfield. And, you know, I was a middle because I was very big. And I got to Springfield, and my Coach Deering, like, really taught me pretty much everything I knew. So it was like I didn't hit a 1-ball or 3-ball until I got to college. And for people who know volleyball, would blow your mind. But he taught me everything. And I learned fast, and I was excited to be playing at that high level of the game. We had a really good team my freshman year. And it really kind of exposed me to what championship culture, what excellence, what high standards looks like. I mean, we were just pushed to the core. And a lot of that was our senior leadership, Aileen, who was just a big part of my life. But, yeah, I just tried to soak it all in. I knew nothing, and I tried to soak it all in and be great. I rode the bench freshman year. I think I got in a game when we made it to the conference championship because our right side got hurt, and he put me on the right side for a big block, and that was the first game I played. Sophomore year, I kind of dilly-dallied a little bit, but had a very small role, barely played at all. And then he sort of, gave me an opportunity junior year to go in and do some stuff. I split a position with one of our teammates, and I ended up winning out. and kind of playing the rest of my junior year, and had a decent season. I think I was like honorable mention all region or whatever, just like got kind of a taste of what it felt like. It wasn't until after that, my junior season, when it was over, Coach Deering told us he was going to retire. He had been there for a very long time and was a professor. He's now the head of a department before he's retiring. But it kind of like, it hurt us in the sense of like, we loved him. We were so invested in him. He was the head of all the things. And we were like, well, what's next? Like, we're so good. We love this team. Like, what's next? And I will never forget, he sat us all down before he kind of took his last step, and he told me, he went around and kind of told everyone what he wanted them to know about each person, and he told me, he said, you can have it all if you want it. And it struck a chord with me, and I always remember that moment. And that summer I worked my butt off, and I was like, I'm going to be good. If like I'm going to do this, I'm going to be good at it. And I worked hard. I worked my butt off, and I got into a position where I was decent senior year, and we had a heck of a season. We went to the Elite Eight and beat a lot of people. I think in the course of my 4 years at Springfield, we lost 21 matches. So, you know, we understood what it took to win. We understood it would be a high level, but to finish senior year, going to the Elite Eight with the team we loved, and that was the best season, of course, of my career. But, you know, you don't do those things without having a pretty baller team, and we had a pretty baller team. So it was a fun way to kind of cap my college career, and I wouldn't take anything back about being at Springfield. That was for sure the highlight of my life and what got me into what I do now.
Sure. What kind of initially, was it while you were playing your senior year that kind of made you realize coaching is what I want to do? I know you already mentioned you kind of had that experience at Ohio State. Did you know you wanted to be a coach before that?
Yeah, so like I didn't know I wanted to coach at all. All I knew was like Coach Deering, who was my coach for the first 3 years, and Coach Long, who was my coach for my senior year, impacted my life more than pretty much anybody in a higher position in my life, right? Like they had impacted me not only as a player but as a person, and it meant something to me. And that's pretty much all I knew. I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. Initially, I thought I wanted to go to law school and be a sports agent because I just really was just all about all those things. But when I got the internship at Ohio State, I really got a glimpse at high caliber athletics and what it takes to run programs, what it takes to run events, championships. We ran a lot of national championships, a lot of regional championships, so I got to be a part of that. But I didn't know I wanted to coach until I had to decide what to do after Ohio State, and I still had no clue. And I said, one of my coaching friends, because like Springfield, we have a lot of coaches that have come from Springfield and graduated and are now in the coaching world. So a lot of them had been GAs. So I knew what a GA was because of Springfield. And I knew that if you go and be a GA somewhere, you get a free master's. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go be a GA so I can get a free master's. So then I can go enter the sports world in athletics or working in admin, whatever, with a lot of, with the master's, which, you know, it's important in the sports world at least. So I got a graduate assistantship at DePaul University, which is in Greencastle, Indiana, a really small school, but a beautiful, amazing, high academic school. And I was coaching. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I was getting a free master's. I knew I was going to learn something, and I knew something because of what Springfield kind of provided me in education. So that was really where it took off. And I was incredibly ignorant. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I did because I was decent at volleyball, you know, so you're young, you think you have it all. But I learned a lot those first 2 years. We had a really good team. We did some fun stuff. I think we went to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a couple of years. And Deb Sellers, who's the head coach there, she's still there today. She's done a fantastic job with that program and that community. So learned a lot from her. And when I graduated with my master's and was ready to move on, because, you know, you only stay in a GA position for 2 years, I just felt like I was ready to do something big time with coaching. So that's kind of what led me in that direction. But yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, you had some success while you were there too. You kind of mentioned it. It was the first NCAA tournament appearance since 2000. Yep. You went 51-13 and also got put in the AVCA top 25. So what was it kind of like to, you know, start your coaching career with that kind of success as well?
I think about that team a lot because I think it's similar to what the situation I'm in now. I walked into a situation where that first year I was at DePaul, I mean, Deb had done such a great job with that program. Historically, they'd been very good. But never like competing for a national championship, right? Like very good in their conference, very good in the region. But they were just like, the women were very uneducated when it came to how it took or what it took to be at the highest level, if that makes sense. Like when we started getting votes to be in the top 25, they had no idea what that meant. You know what I mean? Or they really didn't understand any of the criteria it took to make the national tournament. So I remember Deb and I, we constantly were like, okay, this is the team that's going to do it. Like, let's start educating them. Okay, if we're going to do this, we have to do this. If we're going to get a automatic bid, we got to win conference. If we're going to get an at-large bid, we have to, like, beat these teams in region, blah, 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 blah. So, like, really took a lot of young girls who were playing at a high level in club, but came to DePauw and, like, we just were like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And it was like, okay, we sat down, we're like, we're going to accomplish things at a national scale. We want to go to the tournament. We want to, like, disrupt some things. We want to get it done. So I felt like that's always prepared me, I think, when it comes to programs I've been a part of, you know, because you have to educate your team about what it takes. I mean, you can't just keep them in the dark. So, yeah, I mean, that's her program. I definitely kind of just helped the team a little bit to get there, but it was a really good experience and kind of catapulted me into like, okay, this is what it takes to play at a national scale at this level, and I want to be a part of that.
You parlayed that then into your first full-time assistant job with Colorado College. First of all, what was that transition like? Obviously, being a Rhode Islander coming over to Colorado, that's that's a pretty big change.
Well, yeah, I mean, I lived in Ohio for 6 months, and I lived in Indiana for 2 years. And the town I lived in Indiana, Greencastle, is very small. I mean, very small. I never lived in the Midwest. Me and my sister were just talking about this the other day. The first time I ever ate ranch dressing with food was when I moved to Ohio, and it's like no one else does that in the world except the Midwest. And I just, it's a different culture shift, for sure. People are kinder, and things are slower, and it's more community driven. It's just different. But yeah, so how I got from DePauw to Colorado College is I was actually offered a head coaching job, a Division III head coaching job out of DePauw in the same conference, and I was contemplating taking it because I was like 23 years old, and I thought I was like the bee's knees. So I interviewed, I got the job, and I was like, okay, do I want to do this? And then I had interviewed for being the assistant at Colorado College in the same time frame. And when I got offered the assistant job at Colorado College, I was like, that sounds like a lot more fun. Just being out in a different environment, being a part of a really great program. So I remember I called the AD for the job, the head coaching job that I got offered, and I was like, I'm going to take the job at CC. And he's like, you're turning down this job to take an assistant job at CC. And I was like, yeah. He was like, very much couldn't understand why. And I don't think a lot of people could understand why at the time. But moving to Colorado, from living in the Midwest for a little bit and then moving to Colorado, again, totally different culture shift. It was kind of the brink of when Colorado was getting really popular, because even when I lived in Colorado Springs, it was very quaint, very small town vibe, local vibes. And then you go back now and it's like Denver. It's massive. The growth is just so different. So I really enjoyed moving to Colorado at that time, but working at CC, working for Rick Swan at Colorado College, who's a head volleyball coach there at the time, was probably the most defining experience of my coaching career in terms of the things I learned and what I took from him and how to coach and how to be great.
And then again, a lot of success at Colorado College, 64-13. Conference championship, 2 NCAA bursts. At this point, you must have just been used to wherever you're going being super successful.
Yeah, I mean, like when I played at Springfield and all the places I had coached, we went to an NCAA tournament every year. I mean, so you got very familiar with not only that experience, but like you got to a point where I don't want to go to the NCAA tournament. I want to win the NCAA tournament. I'm trying to win national championships, and that's what Rick Swan at CC was all about, and that's why. He really impacted me in the way he did. But it was like, that's what I wanted to do. I'd done it in my whole career. I got close. I got to an Elite Eight playing in it when I was a senior in college. We got a tournament berth at DePauw, and then we knew we were going to make the NCAA tournament at CC. I mean, not new, but you're very confident in it because he had gone to the tournament with his team for 21 years, I think it was, in a row when I got there. So, it was kind of a given, but it's like, at that point, you're like, I don't want to make it. I want to win it. What are we going to do about that? So, a lot of experience in success, but you learn a lot about what it takes to be successful. And the biggest thing I think I took from Rick at CC was how to recruit. I mean, the guy knew how to recruit anybody. To have the type of personality and drive to recruit baller kids who are some of the most highest academic in the country, because to get into CC is just near impossible. I think when I was there, it was a 5% acceptance rate, which was lower than Harvard at the time. So we were convincing kids we had to find geniuses that were ballers. And then on top of that, they had to pay $70,000 out of pocket because you didn't really have any type of athletic scholarships. Of course, it's Division III, but the academic scholarships weren't, that huge. So to recruit at that level and to convince kids to get into that, as opposed to go taking a scholarship at some D2 or D1 or mid-major school, they could because they were that good. I mean, I learned a lot. So he could sell anything, and he taught me how to sell anything. And I learned a lot from him about how to recruit great kids, especially the smart ones from great families. And then obviously how to get them into your program and train them at a consistent pace where excellence is the only thing that's accepted.
And then building off of that success, you got your first head coaching job in a pretty volleyball-rich state, Minnesota Morris. First year was not great, but then your second year you went 26-8, 14-2 in the conference.
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny situation. So when I worked for Rick for 2 years, and we have very similar personalities. We're very dominant individuals. Like, we're just very kind of alpha people, me and him. And I remember my second year, we finished our second year, and I was at CC, and like that job doesn't pay much, and so his assistants were pretty much like 2 or 3 years, and then they rotate and go get bigger jobs. And I was like, should I leave? Should I get another head coaching job? And he's like, you need to go get a head coaching job. He's like, you're trying to run my program, so you need to go run someone else's. Like, and he really kind of pushed me into that, like launching into that career. So I thank him a lot for that, kind of giving me the nudge I needed. But I got the job in Minnesota Morris. And I was excited about it because it was a competitive conference. It was a area in the country that, at the time, my then boyfriend, now my husband, was willing to kind of come and live with me because it's very outdoorsy, hunting, fishing. I mean, Minnesota's like the coolest place. So it just kind of like made sense for our family. It made sense for me. Walked into a situation, like we were decent, we were pretty good, but at the time, I mean, the Division III volleyball is no joke in general, but Division III volleyball in that region is just incredible. Just incredible. I mean, you could compare it to most Division II programs at this point. So it's like, we battled some of the best teams in the country that first year, and we were like, I think we were close to being a 500 team, or over a 500 team, but we were pretty good. And then I recruited a bunch of kids going into that second year to do things at a high level, and we had some really great talent. The amazing thing about Minnesota is, like, you could walk into a population 500 town and find your next All-American, and she doesn't play club because she plays 3 sports. You've never heard of her. I mean, I was telling one of my coaching friends the other day, like, when I coached in Minnesota, I used to read the paper, and I used to find kids who would, like, in the, when they break down the scores of the night, like, who had the most kills, and then I'd drive to that high school, I'd watch them play, and they'd end up being an All-American for us, and that happened to me twice, and it's just incredible. Minnesota is just like a magical place.
Yeah, it's unreal how much volleyball talent they have. 100%.
So that was fun, and then, we had a really good year that second year. It was the best record that the program had ever had. We lost in a conference championship to Northwestern St. Paul, which I think at that point they were top 10 in the country. I mean, they were a fantastic program, fantastic team that year specifically. That outside who was National Player of the Year that year. But we lost in the conference championship, so we didn't get an automatic bid, and we thought, this is it. We're going to get our at-large bid. We have beat the best regional teams. I mean, we've done the work, and we didn't end up getting in, which was heartbreaking for that team specifically, because we had some seniors, leaders who were just so phenomenal. They deserved that moment. But yeah, it was a really great experience. Such a cool first head coaching job. I had no full-time assistant. I had some really great volunteer assistants. I got lucky. Don't know how, but it was just a really great experience for me. And then obviously it gave me the confidence to know I can do this at a high level, and I want to do it at a high level. I always knew I wanted to do it at a high level, but at that point, I had gathered all I needed to know what it took to be playing at a national level. And I was confident in my abilities to do that anywhere.
And then after that, what was it specifically about South Dakota Mines? What were you ready to leave? Was South Dakota Mines a job that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota Morris is a fantastic place. I mean, it's a special place. It's a really small community. It worked for me and my husband then. It wasn't a place that we knew we were going to be forever in the sense of just too small of a town for us. But again, the community there, the people there are amazing. I still have very good friends that live in that area. But yeah, it wasn't going to be a forever job. And we knew that kind of going into it. And my AD at the time knew that too. But I got the call about South Dakota Mines through Rick Swan, who I worked for at CC, because he had kind of heard about it through the grapevine. And I had a conversation with Joe Lucan, our athletic director, over the phone, and I had never heard of Rapid City. I had never been to South Dakota. I had no idea. I had no idea what I was walking into. And he basically asked me to come out and interview. So I said, okay, I'll come out and interview. I mean, there's nothing wrong with an interview, right? And I remember when I was planning on doing this, I asked Aaron, my husband, I was like, you want to move to Rapid City? He's like, no. He's like, I don't even know what Rapid City is. I don't want to go there. Like, we had no idea, you know? Because our goal was always to get back to Colorado. He grew up there. We fell in love there. We loved Colorado, and we wanted to kind of get back in that direction. We had no idea how similar Rapid City was to Colorado. So I came out and I made an interview. I really enjoyed the people that I got to know. I mean, the conversation I had with Tiffany McCampbell, who was our assistant AD at the time, like, I really knew that I was going to be mentored by her in the volleyball sense. So I like that. I mean, you've got to have a mentor when you're coaching. So I like what Joel had to say. I mean, the growth of the department, we were on the verge of good things. It was a higher level going from Division 3 to Division 2, but in retrospect, the program I was walking into was probably at its lowest, which I didn't really know what I signed up for until you get into it, which that's a whole other conversation, because no one ever does when you're rebuilding a program. But I accepted the job because it made sense for our family, because I went back to Minnesota and I told Aaron, I said, it's a beautiful place. I said, the Badlands, you should see it. The Black Hills are insane. You would love it. There's rivers and lakes. I said, it's just like Colorado. You know, it's everything that you love about Colorado, but it's a small town. We don't have to like wait in traffic for 45 minutes to go to the grocery store. This is like everything about a community that we both enjoyed. And he ended up getting a really good job here. So it just made sense for our family. It really worked in the time, and here I am.
Sure. Initially, what was, again, you've been in other places in the Midwest. Yeah. It just seemed, even from state to state, the Midwest is so much different from Colorado to South Dakota to Minnesota.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's all a little different. I think it's just like in Minnesota, it was such a small town. It was, everybody knew me. I mean, I remember being cornered by Old Men at Subway, which was the only restaurant in town, by the way, and being like, when are we going to beat Northwestern? And they knew all my players' names and all the stats. And I mean, it's a totally different environment, you know, as opposed to then you're in Colorado and it's like CC is the smallest. I mean, it's no one knows about it, but yet it's the biggest gem in the country. I mean, I will stand by that till the end of time. So the community, I think, is different. And then the environment is always different. Out here, when we moved here, it was similar community. People love Hardrocker athletics, or invested. Like, people knew who I was. They would see me in the news. Like, my neighbors like, hey, say on the news. And so you still that small community feel, which we really appreciated and liked. And then obviously just the outdoor environment for us was huge. We wanted to get back to more of that, like, mountainous. Like, we can go to lakes. We can kind of like hike and do some fun stuff. My husband was a little disappointed because he was in a fishing league in Minnesota. Every Wednesday night he would go out and fish, and he didn't get to do that when we moved to Rapid City, so that was a little sad for him. But other than that, he very much enjoyed the move. And yeah, we've really turned to love Rapid City very much. Yeah,
one of the things that I kind of noticed early is that it's a big town but small town feel, which
100%.
is a real great thing.
It is. It's a really perfect mix, and I tell people that all the time. I tell recruits that constantly because, you know, whether we're recruiting young girls from small towns or big cities, you're going to get everything you want. You know, if you're going to come from a small town, South Dakota, or small town, Minnesota, you come out here, it's no different. I mean, yes, you have all your chain stores, you got Target, you got all the things you need in life. You know, it's not a one stoplight town, but people know who you are, and they they buy into you, and they love what we're doing. They come to our camps. You get to know families over time. Like, it's a community feel. And then for our kids that we recruit from big cities, it's the same conversation in the sense of everything that you need here is here. You know, all the stores, all the things, all the shopping, all the restaurants, we got it. You know, you're not going to feel like you're moving to Podunk, America. So it's an easy sell. I mean, you have everything you need here, and I think that's one of the things we've been able to do over the past couple of years is recruit some really phenomenal women that are from all over the country, because there's something in Rapid City or in the Black Hills for everybody.
Yeah, and then kind of going into a little bit of, you kind of already talked about the state of the program before you got here. 45 and 121 was the record for the whole D2 era before you got here. One winning season. Obviously, you aren't where you want to be yet, but you know, coming off when you got hired, it was a 3 and 25 team. To be able to turn that into, you know, a near 500 team 2 years later and an RMAC postseason appearance.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to what I said earlier, and people ask me all the time, like, what advice would you give to a coach taking over a program to rebuild? And it's what no one ever told me, and I wish I knew, is it's never what you think it is. And you're never going to be prepared for it. You know, you go in thinking, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to instill a culture that I know wins championships, and it's going to happen. And that's not how it works. It's just, it takes time, and it takes investment from, obviously, the people around you in your community, your department, your administration, institutional administration. I mean, it takes buy-in from a lot of people. And to get buy-in, you got to prove your worth. And so it takes time to prove your worth. So that first year was shocking. It was probably the least enjoyable in terms of fun. I mean, little fun is had when you don't win games, right? And we recruited a really great class that first year. My assistant, Savannah, which I credit her a lot of the great recruiting we did in those first 2 years. She was so great at really finding these kids, and we would both go out and find these kids, and we were so great at selling the institution and selling the community. And we brought in 10 kids that first year because we knew it was going to be a complete clean slate. Like, we got to build a team that can play volleyball at a high level, which is something that this program desperately needed, that can play volleyball at a high level and also just really buy into a culture shift, because it's hard to buy into a culture shift when you've been a part of something. So we went out and recruited 10 kids to transfer as eight true freshmen. And that second year, we played all the freshmen and 2 sophomores. So it was a true rebuild. I mean, it's the truest sense of all of it. And that second year was a lot more fun. We had a lot more fun because we had a lot of kids that wanted to buy into us, buy into the culture. They wanted to take ownership of the program. They were proud of it, and therefore they made other people around us proud of it. And that was something this program has not had in a very long time, is pride. So I pretty much attribute everything that we are today to them, because without their pride, without their strength and resilience to kind of go through that and be like, no, we are good enough and we're going to show you what's up, we wouldn't be where we're at. That second year was a lot of fun. We upset 2 national ranking teams, which any young team is kind of going to be capable of doing. But we were like decent. We were a pretty good team. We were okay, but we definitely were better than we had ever been before, and that was the goal. I mean, if I'm going to come in and rebuild a program from absolute scratch, we won 1 conference game my first year coaching, so we can only go up from there. But every year after that needs to be the best it's ever been, and that's what we've done in 4 years. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the women that we've done it with, the coaches we've done it with, because you can't get there without a great staff and a great team. But we've come a long way, and I wish this season was a little bit, I guess, prettier. But you know what? Adversity is what makes us better, and it still is the best season we've had in my 4 years. So you got to pick, you got to find some wins where you have them, and that's what we found. We found a way to kind of celebrate. Okay, we still had a better record than we've ever had before, and that's something to be proud of. So we're going in the right direction. We got a lot of buy-in. We got a lot of talent, a lot of great leadership in our program. I have a phenomenal coaching staff I can't say enough about, with Tony just doing his thing on a daily basis, and he's just taken us to such a high level. And then I have 2 volunteer assistants, Annika Stevens and Mackenzie Wember, who have just pretty much added every little thing that this team needed. They are just like the perfect puzzle piece to what we need to be successful. So I'm very grateful for kind of what we've built.
I was going to bring up Tony, that he is a volleyball. I swear, if you were talking to a 2-year-old, he could figure out a way to teach him how to play volleyball.
Yeah.
He's just, and having that experience, being a former D1 head coach, that must be important too.
Oh yeah, I mean, Tony is as smart as they come, and everybody knows that, and Tony's been around the game for a long time, and he's highly respected, and everybody knows Tony. Or Tony knows everybody, I should say. He definitely knows what's up, and he has taken our defense and our passing to a whole new level, because that's kind of his thing. But he's definitely just taken our standards to a whole new level. Like, he's like, this is how it needs to be. This is how we get there, and that's it. I'm not going to negotiate, like, we got to be this. We're going to do that to be this. And that's what our women do. They respond to him really well. So he's been a great addition to me, because I'm all culture. I'm all relationships. I'm very much managing this team from a different level, in the sense of, like, what I'm seeing. I'm seeing culture. I'm seeing the things that are going to set us back in terms of relationships, where he's like, we have to pass at this percentage in this rotation to be successful. And, it's totally different minds, but we complement each other so well. So very grateful to have him around.
Then kind of going into talking about this season.
Yeah.
Obviously off to a great start. Started 6-2, knocked off Northern State in their own gym, which is, even in a down year, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
How do you obviously you weren't able to sustain that. How do you take the next step to be able to sustain that early start?
Yeah. It was a hot start, and our women had been preparing for that for a long time, mostly because we got our first playoff berth in program history, or our MAC playoff berth, that spring, but we weren't able to compete in it because of COVID, which was a real bummer. And so, we had waited a long time to come back and compete at a high level, and we were hungry. And so I think that really attributes to why that start was so hot. It also helps that we were extremely healthy. We got into a situation where very quickly in the beginning of the season, we couldn't sustain health physically, which is a bummer. But it's sports. This is what happens. This is why you have to have depth. This is why you have to have talent. We have a great athletic training staff. Becca, who's our trainer, got us through a lot of tough moments. But, we have to be better in terms of consistency. And we do that by having more depth in the gym, which is something that we are going to have in the future. We do that by having higher standards and higher expectations, and practicing consistently, because if we're going to be consistent, we got to practice consistent. So definitely we learned a lot as far as coming out hot and then kind of fizzling a little bit. And the way I know that we're headed in the right direction, and I tell this to my kids and my coaches, this is how I know, is we started out hot. We kind of had a mediocre season. You could call it that. I think, for what we had in terms of, like, missing almost 50% of our starters at any given time throughout most of the season to injury, I'm okay with it. I'm happy with, I'm not thrilled, but I'm happy with what we were able to accomplish. I'm aware of our growth, and I'm seeing what the positive is, because a lot of people were like, kind of a down year for you guys, huh? And I'm like, okay, so you get it. Like, you get that we're supposed to be very good. And because of injury or because of inconsistencies, we weren't great this season. We should have finished top 8 at least. That's how I know we're headed in the right direction, because my first year here, everyone expected us just to kind of exist. And if we won one game, it was like, wow, great job. Tell us about it. Like, how was it? I mean, it's like, I'm like, we won one game. Is that, what do we have to be excited about? But now we're getting to the point where we're winning a lot of matches, and people expect us to be good. And that's how you're moving in the right direction. I think our women get that. So it hurts a little more when you're not fulfilling what you're supposed to be doing, because you have expectations. You got to reach them. And people in our community and people in our department want us to be successful, and they want us to make playoffs and be what we are. And what we are is pretty talented, and we got to win a lot more volleyball games than what we did this year. But we will.
Yeah, and I think those expectations are only going to continue to grow, especially, next year you bring pretty much everyone back again. You brought in a pretty good recruiting class.
For sure. I mean, losing the seniors we lost is tough in terms of, like, relationships, leadership, the culture that they've brought to us, and of course the talent. I mean, we graduated some talented kids, but yes, we pretty much return our entire starting lineup, and we're bringing in 7 freshmen. We are hoping to get maybe a transfer or 2 that can bring in some depth in those sophomore, junior classes, just to kind of round out some things. But the freshmen we're bringing in, we're excited about. I mean, they got talent for sure, but they're great people. They're great women. They're smart. They're going to bring a lot to the school in general, which we always are trying to recruit, just the future of South Dakota Mines, you know. So always big expectations. I mean, if you don't have big expectations, what are we doing? I mean, so always big expectations, but I think that our juniors who are going to be seniors next season sort of had an awakening this fall. And I think they have gotten to the point where it's like, this isn't going to end with us. We're not going to just keep living to this mediocre potential or this mediocre expectation. We have to be great, and we're capable of being great. We know what we are. We see us practice every single day. We know exactly who we are. You know, we don't need to prove it to anybody except for ourselves. So I think this leadership and this soon-to-be senior class is defining, and it's up to them. It truly is. I mean, I've always believed in running a player-led program. They are the owners of it. It's not like I'm the big boss, I make the rules. It's not how we do things. They own the program. The choices, the decisions we make, you know, they get a big say in. And the expectations and the standards we live to are because they hold them up and not me. And so I think that this soon-to-be senior class is going to be a huge reason why we are successful. I mean, they got to be the ones that put their foot down and say, we're going to go and compete for a championship. We're not just going to exist, you know? So I'm excited for that growth for that class, because we have 8 phenomenal soon-to-be seniors who are great leaders and great kids. And if they can really step it up in terms of culture, in terms of leadership, then we're going to be big.
Before we finish up here, I wanted to bring up one more thing.
Yeah.
Recently you had a child. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But the reason I bring that up
Yeah.
is because being a coach, especially having a child so close to when the season started, how much of a drastic change was that? How hard was it to go on the road, and how hard is it initially to find that balance between going from all volleyball to a child?
Initial thought is terrifying. I had Hank 2 weeks before our summer camp, which summer camp is my baby. We run that thing big time, and it's become huge over the past 4 years. It's amazing. But Hank was 2 weeks old. I took him in a stroller. I took him to camp. I wasn't, of course, at camp the entire time, but I was made a presence because we had big-time recruits there. I had to be there. I never really took a full maternity leave because we jumped into practice 4 weeks later. So I took about 3 clean weeks off. But, of course, during those weeks, you're, like, talking to your kids because they get questions about moving and doing all this and jumping into it. And so, yeah, terrifying, scary, and you don't know anything. Like, what do you know about being a new parent? Nothing. No new parent knows anything. And then you walk into, okay, I have to lead 22 women to victory every week, you know, while all I can think about is him, you know, because every single day I practice, especially that first month, is like, my mind is nowhere in this gym. And, you know, our women, we talk about, to be successful, you got to be present. So I definitely was not committing to the expectation that I had for them. But that's life, you know, like you're never going to be perfect. And it definitely was hard. And I wouldn't have been able to get through it, without fantastic assistance, because they knew who I was and how much I loved him and how much it hurt to leave him. And so when I wasn't there, they were all in it. Like, they were leading the team, doing what they got to do. And my girls, my team, I mean, they all the time ask me how I am. They're constantly like, how is it? Like, what's it like? You know, what do you need from us? And they just understood the battle. I mean, no one can really understand, but they respected what I was going through, and they were so supportive. And I don't think I could have done that without them. So, yeah, it was crazy. Traveling without him was miserable. My husband, you know, came with us the first trip, and it was so nice to have him there. And then we were like, this is too hard to travel with him this far and do all this. So every weekend that I traveled, he was home with my husband, and my husband started to fall in love with the boys' weekends. So I think he's kind of sad that those are over. But yeah, I don't know if I could do it again during the season. But you you learn a lot about yourself as a new parent, but then also as a coach who is a parent. I was a lot more calm this year. I picked my battles a little differently, and because you win or lose, you go home to people that love you, and it gives you a different perspective when you don't have children, or maybe if you don't have a family or whatever. Volleyball or coaching can kind of consume you. It can be everything. It's like, if I don't win this game, what is that? Reputation and perception, and I mean, you get so consumed with wins and losses, and I'll tell you a secret: wins and losses don't mean anything. And I know that now for sure. I mean, I started to learn that as I get older and do this a little bit more, but they don't mean anything. It's about the relationships you make with your team, and it's about the women you coach and the people you can help them become, because that's why we do what we do. I'm not here to, win and lose. I'm here to make them great and help them along their way in this small stop of life. And at the end of the day, I'm going to remember the relationships I have with them and the family that I got to raise before I will with any wins and losses. So that, I think, has taught me a lot. I get to go home to my husband and Hank, and I get to enjoy family, and they're going to love me and smile at me whether we win or lose anyway. So it gives you a different perception for sure. But, you get through those things in life with having great people around you. And I think now our women especially understand I'm going to be with them through every walk of life too, just the way they were with me. So we got to do it together no matter what we do in life.
Yeah, I think just about everybody, working in sports, I think would take more pride in having a student athlete, an assistant, whoever, become successful afterwards than winning 20 games.
100%. I mean, I think about it all the time. My college career, we were very good. We were competing at the highest level, and I have lifelong friends from college. I mean, I have mentors, I have people I coach with, people that are 10 years older than me, and I still, every time we get together, it's like we never left. And I'll tell you what we never talk about, and it's winning. I mean, we won pretty much every game we played, and we never, ever talked about going to the Elite Eight or winning. I mean, it never came up. It was all about the stories and the bus rides and the hotels and the parties and the things that we did in college. That's the only thing that you take with you, is the love you have for people and what you learn from coaches and all those funny moments and stories. And so, that's proof. That's proof. Wins or losses mean nothing. It's about so much bigger than that. And I became who I am because of the people, not because I was winning. It's the people who made me who I am, and the coaches that inspired me to coach is why I'm coaching. I didn't get into coaching because I like winning. I get into coaching because my coaches in college changed my life. And so I intend to do that to as many women as I can, or at least try to.
All right, that wraps us up. Thank you for joining us today, Lauren. This has been the Hardrocker Huddle. I'm Josh Van Valkenburg-Gernert, signing off.